Hello, hello, hello. This is Robin from Roaming with Rover, and this is Finish It Friday. Thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate it. We have a lot to talk about today, and I mean a lot. So I am going to just jump right in. Oh my gosh, what should I talk about first? Let's jump right in here with this. I've got, what do I have over here? Oh yeah, I have finished objects. How can that be? I know, right? Okay, so Miss Lori from the Armchair Chef, you guys all know about Lori from the Armchair Chef. She's doing this thing, and I don't know exactly what she calls it, but I wrote down a hashtag that I saw, and it was hashtag MYC124. And Lori, I hope that's right. I'm going to put a link down to her channel down below. She talks about it a lot on her channel, and you guys can join anytime you want. Every month it starts over every month. You can jump in every month, and basically you trade with other people. Mystery Yarn Challenge, MYC, Mystery Yarn Challenge. Yes, I am right on the ball. But there's different things you can do. You can trade yarn with other people and make stuff. That's where the mystery yarn thing comes in. You can receive yarn, you can get yarn, you can work on whips, which is what I did because I've got a lot of whips and I did not want to have to make something. It's so cold here, you guys, it's so cold. So I did not want to, and you guys know I have no imagination. So if this yarn showed up on my doorstep and I had to try to create something out of it, I didn't think I could do that. So when she told me we could work on a whip and count towards this, I'm like, that I can do. So I doed it. So I went to my little yarn whip list, and here comes the heater. So I'll talk louder. But I went to my yarn whip list, and I pulled this rotten thing out that I was so angry at, and I finished it. Ta-da-da! So as you recall, this was that horrible, no, it wasn't horrible. It was beautiful, but it was the Rosewood Mystery Crochet Along that I absolutely got lost in. Isn't that pretty? The work on it was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The stitching was gorgeous. The design was lovely. I fought and fought and fought every inch of the way with that pattern. And finally I said, and I think I kept up with 6 weeks of this thing, 6 weeks of it. And myself and Amber and several other people that I talked to, we just really struggled with this pattern. And I finally just said, forget it, I'm done. And so we got to a stopping point at the end of this week, and I hadn't even finished this week of it. And so I declared myself done. I finished the rounds that I was on, finished up this week of the pattern, sewed in all my ends. Look at that, all my ends are done. And it was going to be a larger tablecloth, table covering type thing. And so it is a smaller table covering type thing. I put it out on I've got a chest, a wooden chest that sits underneath my window, and I take a lot of photos of my projects there because the sunlight spills on it, and the cats lay there a lot in the sunshine. So this has become a place for the cats to lay on. They are very pleased with it. There's a lot of cat hair on it already to prove that they are very pleased with it. And so it has become a gift for the cats, and I am happy for them to enjoy it. So finished object number 1. Here is proof, Miss Lori. And so that is my finished object for Lori, Armchair Chef, hashtag MYC124. And I am going to be working on I'm assuming it's NYC 224 for February. I'm guessing. I don't really know how this works, but I'm playing along. This is really giving me the kick in the behind to get some of these things finished. So, finished object number 1. Okay, now, Kim over at Yarning for a Smile talked about something called hashtag TWMT, Things We're Making Thursday. And apparently a group of makers, and again, I don't quite know how this thing worked. Last year they did it differently than this year, but every month they're going to come up with a project, and you go out and find what pattern you want to do, and you make said project, and you present it. Ta-da! I made this. And I think the idea is you're supposed to use a pattern out of your stash and or yarn out of your stash. So I decided that I wanted to use yarn out of my stash because that's kind of a goal this year, as every year. And the project this month was slippers. Well, I've been wanting to make slippers anyway. And Kim had given us lots of suggestions for slippers. I found one that I really, really liked, and I was going to make them. Well, then in my process of doing different things, I ran into this yarn that I had, and I went, oh, these would make the most wonderful slippers, but they would not work for the pattern that I had chosen. And so I rummaged around in the world of patterns, and I found a free pattern that used that weight of yarn. And the yarn that I had found was just Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn, chunky. I love this chunky yarn. And it was this beautiful blue. And these are very, very simple slippers. And I made them for Miss Morgan because her room is cold. And I just found a very, very simple slipper pattern. And I'm not even going to tell you the pattern because there were problems with the pattern. And it might have been my way of getting it, but part way through the pattern cut off, and so I had to wing it it got to about right here and the pattern disappeared. And so I had to wing it for the rest of it. And it was fine. As you can see, we have a slipper. And she tried it on. She wasn't even home when I made it, so I compared it to one of her shoes to get sizing. And it's funny looking, but it fits her perfectly. Fits her perfectly. And so she was super excited. And they're very, very warm. And it's a really simple most of it's half double crochet. And there's a lot of front post, this all is front post, back post double crochet, and then a lot of decreasing, and it turned out great. However, I totally screwed this thing up. I pulled out this skein of yarn because I was doing something else with it, and I'll tell you later what I was doing with it. And I must have put it back when I was done. And then when I thought, oh, that would make the most beautiful slippers, I saw the skein of yarn and went, oh, good, I have 2 of them. And I don't know what I did. So I pulled the skein of yarn and I made this slipper. And then I needed a second skein, and I went looking for what I knew was the second skein, except there wasn't a second skein. I must have pulled this, done what I had done with it, and then put it back, seen it thinking I had a second skein in there, when in fact it was the first skein that I had put away. So when I went to make the second slipper, I didn't have 2 skeins of yarn in the same color. So I had a second skein of yarn in a different color. So poor Miss Morgan ended up with 2 slippers in 2 complete different colors. Well, luckily, Miss Morgan loves me. Now, if I had realized that I had 2 skeins in 2 colors, I could have done the tops in the blue and the soles in the gray, and it would have been fine. But I didn't. So, and I had already completely finished this one, and I didn't want to go buy more yarn because the whole point is to use up what I already have. But I figured, okay, they're slippers. They're house slippers. They're never leaving this house. Most of the time, all you're going to see is the top anyway. So I thought I'll do the toe, and you'll never see the tops. So this is what I ended up with. 2 completely different colored slippers. But they're warm, and they fit, and they're done. And that's the important part, and she likes them. And I knew she wouldn't care, because she this is honestly the kind of thing she would do anyway. And I sort of thought maybe I would have enough yarn to go around with the blue a couple of rows anyway. No, I had enough to go around 1 row. So that's what we ended up with. A finished pair of slippers that completely do not match. Completely do not match. But she likes them. I knew she would, because that's the sort of sweet, wonderful person that Miss Morgan is. And I love her for it. So those are the finished objects. Now, what have I been working on all week? Those 2 things. As you know, on Sundays, I'm doing this Knitalong, and it is by, the pattern is by the Underground Crafter, and it is a weekly Knitalong. Every week we're doing a square, 1 6-inch square. Week 1 was just the intro, and we did it was kind of to do a gauge swatch, test out your yarn, see how it works up, and excuse me, things like that. Get used to the pattern, all that kind of stuff. Good thing, because I messed up, of course. I am a very, very brand new beginning knitter. This is a sampler blanket that we're doing. We're going to be doing 30 squares altogether. This was my first week. This was my sampler. Not my sampler, my first block, which I messed up. I made it too big because, and I read the instructions 1,000 times, and I measured and measured and measured and measured 1,000 times. What I did was, I was supposed to do 6 inches, and I kept knitting and knitting and knitting and knitting and knitting. I knitted 6 inches from here to here, but you weren't supposed to do that because the 6 inches included this, and I forgot about it. And I knew that. And I'm just knitting away, not paying any attention, and I was supposed to stop about right there. So it's about that much too long. About that much too long. But this was just the sample gauge. See, if I folded that over, you can see it's just almost exactly right. So this is stockinette stitch, which means knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, purl a row. And that's kind of all I know how to do right there. So every week we're going to be learning a new stitch, and I'm very excited about this. So when everything is said and done, we will have learned 30 stitches, and these will be blocked and sewn together and ready to be done. I am using the Hirschner's worsted antiquity yarn, and I had a 4-pack in different colors, these pretty fall colors, and plus my border color. So if you guys are interested, pop in on Sunday mornings it's 7 Pacific, so different times throughout the country, throughout the world. Even if you don't knit, just pop in and listen to us and visit with us while we muddle through. Come watch me. Speaking of muddle, come watch me muddle through on this thing, because like I said, I am not a knitter. Although it's weird, I'm knitting a bunch of things right now. I've got the knitting bug right now. So this is my This is kind of my deadline project right now. Every week I have to get this done. Super excited about that right now though. We've got, if you're still with us, make sure you stay tuned because we've got a surprise giveaway in this video that is not going to be written down anywhere. So make sure you stay tuned for the surprise giveaway. Okay. This is kind of my pride and joy right now. Those of you who've been listening for a while have known I've always wanted to learn how to knit socks. And that's my big goal for this year, was to learn how to knit socks. So I signed up for knitting lessons, and I was going to learn how to knit on, they call this the magic loop. So you take this big old long cable needle instead of double pointed needles, which is a whole bunch of just little straight needles, and double pointed needles scare me. So I thought, okay, magic loop got the best of me last year when I was trying to knit socks. So I was going to go in and just learn magic loop. And I went in there and I said, teach me magic loop, and I'm just going to make a pair of tube socks for Mister. Then I don't have to mess with heels and turns and tops and bottoms and all these things. I'll learn magic loop, I'll learn Kitchener on the toe, and I'm good to go. And she said, fine, no problem. So I went in there and she's teaching me magic loop. Doop, 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 doop. And so I'm doing this rib stitch for the cuff and magic loop. And pretty soon she's like, you know, you've got that figured out. There's really nothing to this. She said, why don't you just make a sock? And I'm like, a sock? I can't make a sock. And she said, yes, you can. You can make a sock. And first I said, well, this isn't sock yarn. And she goes, sure it is. So I'm using Comfy Cotton Blend, the exact same yarn that I made a sweater out of last year. I made one of Darla, the Crafty Yarn Owl. I made her sweater, my first sweater, which was my first sweater. And this is called Chai Latte. What is it? It's a light 3, which it is not. It works up as a 4. Light 3, cotton. Where's the things? Wash, dry, do not triangle, do not iron. 50 cotton, 50 poly. And I said, I can use this as a sock yarn? She said, sure. No reason why you can't. It's really a nice, the weight of it is like a nice heavy weight sock that I would buy for this time of year. And I'm like, well, what do? I'm scared. So I am making the basic beginner bed sock. And it's a 2x2 rib, which just means knit 2, purl 2 all the way around. I almost wish I hadn't. Oh, look, see, there's those double pointed needles. They look like a bunch of sticks. I would not have chosen this for my first sock because all this ribbing is kind of slow to do. But you literally just do this ribbing all the way down till you get down to the next step. And so I'm doing 7.5 inches of just going round and round and round and round of ribbing. So it's a little slow. If I was doing just knitting round and round, it would have been faster. So that's all I'm doing, is just a whole bunch of that. But look, I'm making a sock. Who knew? So that's what I'm doing. I am making a sock on magic loop. So I'm not going to be ready for heel tomorrow because I'm not going to be ready for heel. But if I'm not ready, I will slip this onto a different loop and then I'll just start the next one and go. So that's how I'll be ready. I'm making a sock. I'm so excited. Okay, so there's my sock so far. There's my sock. I had no idea I could do a sock out of just regular yarn. I thought it had to be the special, little teeny tiny, I can't even think of the word. Where's my sock? Bag. And I had fancy sock yarn. Hold on. I had fancy sock yarn picked out. So when I was able to make a sock, Meringo. I thought you had to use Meringo. And she's like, no, you can use any yarn, almost any yarn you want. That's the sock yarn I had picked out. So, but this will be nice. This will be nice and warm. Cotton, yeah. So, I'm making a sock. I shall keep you apprised. Okay. Let's put this back over here. I can work on it because the needles are teeny tiny. These are bamboo. Chalgu bamboo 3.5 needles, number 4, 3.5 needles. The bamboo is supposed to be easier on hands that get sore. So with my arthritis, I went with the bamboo because they're supposed to help your hands. They're supposed to make it easier on your hands. I cannot work on these for hours and hours and hours, which is the other reason it's a little slow going, but I can work on them an hour or two. And then I start getting cramped up in this hand. Okay. But I do enjoy doing it. I do enjoy doing it. All right. The other thing I am doing is, you guys remember I told you that one of my goals is to get my whips done this year. And this was one of the whips that I had started. I had started this last year. It was in my whip video. And it is another knit project. But I started this last year with Lynette from Charmed Grammy Crochet. And Lynette, I will be tagging you in this. And again, don't forget, we've got a secret giveaway in this video, so hang on. So Miss Lynette, and it was Lynette and I think a couple other ladies were learning to knit. And so they found this fairly easy blanket pattern, and it is called the Fall Cuddler Chunky Blanket Easy Knitting Pattern. I have no idea whose pattern it is. It was free. Fall Cuddler Chunky Blanket Easy Knitting Pattern. If anybody wants to go check that out. It was a free pattern, and all I remember about it was there's a few sections, and I think we're repeating sections. And I barely started it last year. Barely. I had cast it on, and I think I had done 4 or 5 rows maybe. Well, I am now on I'm starting row 17. So here we are, starting row 17. It's got great big knitting needles. US 15 knitting needles, 10 millimeter. And I'm using the Lion brand Woolies Thick and Quick. And I had gotten this in a really good sale. So I have several of these, and that's why I wanted to do this blanket, was to use this yarn up. And I love the Woolies Thick and Quick. It's expensive, but I remember I got a super duper good sale. This is 12 ounces, 212 yards, super bulky 6. Yeah, it's nice and bulky. But it's 80 acrylic, 20 wool, and it's machine wash and dryable. The other reason I like this, made in Turkey. You know we like the made in Turkey yarn. It is squishy and soft, scarfable, This is called Fisherman. This is a color that I really like this color. Very beigey, creamy. The warmth of wool blended with the ease of acrylic. And it is. That's why I like this. You just chuck it right in the washing machine. So, this is kind of my next get it finished whip goal. And because it's the Woolies Thick and Quick, nice big chunky yarn, I think it's going to go pretty quickly. So that's that. Let's get these instructions in here. So Miss Lynette, how's yours coming? Haven't heard anything from you for a while on that project. I know you're busy with lots of projects. And then there's this. See, I've been super busy this week. Then there's this. Remember we were talking, hold on. I know that's noisy, but I gotta get this over here. I don't want it to fall over and have stuff go everywhere. This little project has given me fits as well, but I think I finally got a handle on it. This is the Nordic Heirloom stocking, and this is the Waistcoat stitch stocking. The reason I started this was not that I had any great desire to make a stocking, but I wanted to learn waistcoat and I wanted to learn how to do all those pretty color changes and have them look nice. Well, as you remember, I did have a lot of problem figuring this waistcoat out, but I've got that figured out now, no problem, thanks to a lot of people on YouTube, Miss Dana and Miss Cheryl. And I'm getting the color changes, I'm doing the color changes just fine. Not exactly following what she's telling me to do. I need to go back and watch her video again because she's got a very specific flippy thing going on, and I need to do that. But the color changes look okay. The color changes when I'm changing the color is fine. Her little flippy thing I want to watch for managing the yarn. And every once in a while I forget to carry the yarn. And so every now and again inside I've got some yarn because I forget. Because normally that's what the inside looks like. You can't even see the yarn. But every now and again I forget to do that. And then there's the yarn. But it's the inside of stocking, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so let's see how we're getting on this. So this is how far we are now. There's the toe, and you can see, I think, 1, 2, 3, it's got the lower one, I messed that one up. It's got the lower one and then the middle one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you were stair-stepping it, there'd be 5 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 1, 2, and I'm starting on the third one. So not quite halfway through this section. Not quite halfway through. Okay, so remember I told you before, this hurts my hands to work on it because it's tight. You really got to push to get the hook through there. And I'm using my furls. It's got a really pointy tip on there, which you've got to have to work on this. You've got to have that pointy tip to get it through. I would suggest the pointier tip you can find, the better to work through this. But here's the other thing. When I'm pulling this through and I can almost see this thing bending, and I started getting nervous because I don't want to break my furls. And so I had to stop and think a bit. Even as I'm making these as loose as I can, and it's getting easier to get it into these stitches, I still am worried about that hook. Well, I've got my nice metal furls. Now the tip is not as pointy on this, but I've got more strength because of the metal. And I never use these anymore because the weight of this, it's twice as heavy. And when I use these a lot, even though I love them, and these were the first furls I ever bought, the weight of them literally hurts my neck and my shoulders. But that's if I use them a lot. And I can't do this a lot because it hurts my hands. So I got to thinking, if I'm going to only be working on this no more than an hour or so, 2 or 3 rows, I bet I can get away with using my metal hook. And it's going to make the process easier and maybe not hurt my hand. So I tried that the other night. And guess what? It worked. It is so much easier to put this in and get my stitches, and I'm not struggling nearly as much, and it's not hurting my hand as much. So I'm still being careful only to do no more than 3 rows when I'm working on it, but my hand doesn't hurt, and in the long run I think it's going to be better for me. So I can't get an exact count of the rows, but I think I figured it out. It's around 120 rows for this whole process. So it's not going to be any problem if I do 2 or 3 rows a week on this. It's still going to be done by Christmas. And that's a perfectly fine deadline for me because I'm probably going to give this to somebody for Christmas next year. And that's going to make me very happy, because I'm already ahead of the game, because it's, early January, well, late January, but look how far I am. So I am pleased with the way this is working up, and I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. This is making it much easier, and I don't have to worry about breaking that. So that's what's going on with that. That's what's going on with that. Let's get, and the chart is really nice to work up. It's a 1-row chart. You don't have to do multiples. You just go across once, and you're done with that. You're done with that round. And it's circles, so you're not going up and going up and going. You're just going around and around and around in a circle. So it's working out really, really well. Let's see. I had so much to work on today. So many things to talk about. I made a list. Okay, the surprise giveaway. Today is my mother's birthday. She passed away a couple years ago, but she crocheted and was just learning to knit, and we would sit and make, the funny thing is we would sit and knit slippers. That's what we learned to do. When we learned to knit, we started slippers. And oh my gosh, we knitted so many slippers. And I wanted, when the slipper challenge thing came up, I wanted to knit. I can still remember how we did it. It was a very, very simple pattern. And so that's kind of been in my head too lately. And maybe that's why I've been thinking about slippers, because I can remember us sitting and knitting slippers together when we did that. So, in honor of my mom's birthday, her favorite color was purple. Oh, purple, purple. Everything was purple. But she also liked blue a lot. And so I saw this sitting in my stash, this beautiful soft crystal cake. And look at those colors. Look at those sparkly, beautiful colors. So I'm giving away this crystal cake in honor of my mom's birthday. And she passed away a couple of years ago. And she passed away just a couple days after her birthday. And what you have to do if you're interested, and I'm sorry, this has to be US only. It's so expensive to ship out of the US. I apologize. But what I would like you to do in the comments is to give me just tell me a little memory of your mom. Any little memory. And that's it. And then I will do a random drawing from that. And the drawing will be on, I should have written, oh I did write it down on my little calendar. I'm going to be doing the drawing. So I'm sorry. I was going to do the drawing on the 26th. So we'll announce the winner on the next Finish It Friday. So this is just going to be a little short one, just 1 week, and so on the 26th of January. So next week on Finish It Friday. So thank you so much for staying with me. Thank you so much for watching these Finish It Friday videos. I really appreciate it, and I hope you don't mind these longer videos, and I can't wait to read the comments and the little stories and the little memories of you and your mother. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.